Okay, I think we are good to go. So thank you very much for your patience and a very warm welcome to today's webinar. It's really good to see some familiar names here today. So for those who don't know me, I'm Catherine Ellis, Claims Customer Proposition Manager, and I'm really excited to kick off today's session. So I'm joined by Paul Sanderson, our Fast Track Team Leader, and Daniel Moore, our Senior Desktop Claims Assessor, who will introduce themselves shortly. But if I could just first of all cover off a few housekeeping points. Firstly, if you wouldn't mind just keeping your cameras off and your microphones muted during the presentation, that would be great. I don't think you have the facility to unmute or come on camera anyway, but just in case, it just stops any feedback and whatnot. But you can absolutely participate through the chat and the reactions, and there's a dedicated section for questions. So the Q&A button is located at the top of your screen, so feel free to submit your questions as we go along, and we'll address them in the Q&A session at the end. But if you can't locate the Q&A button for whatever reason, you can absolutely put your questions in the chat if needs be, so feel free to do that as well. And I've already made one poll live to complete, so please feel free to complete that. And there'll be a couple more towards the middle and the end of the session, and that will be your opportunity to feedback and also tell us what you'd like to hear about or for us to cover in the future. So yeah, please do take the time to engage with those if you can. And I just want to say a big thank you to those who submitted some questions in advance. We'll aim to cover off as many as time allows at the end of the session, but we hope that the content that we present today will probably answer some of those questions anyway. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Paul and Dan just to introduce themselves before we make a start. So Paul, if I could just pass over to you initially.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Paul Sanderson. I've been at AXA for 10 years now, and I look after 3 teams within the commercial property department. These being the technical teams, so the guys who deal with our claims valued between £100,000 and £500,000. I've got our new Fast Track team that we'll be discussing today, and also our desktop scoping team, which again we'll be touching on today.
Fabulous. And Dan?
Yeah, so I'm Daniel Moore, I'm the Senior Desktop Handler. I've been at AXA for 9 years now, 8 of which have been handling and scoping building claims. That's across both retail and commercial property claims.
Great stuff. Thanks both. So on the slide in front of you now, you'll see the agenda for the session. We're scheduled for around an hour, but I think it's probably likely that we'll wrap up a little bit earlier, depending on how things go and how many questions we get. So yeah, you might end up getting a bit of time back towards the end of the session, which would be nice. But we'll begin with a brief introduction to why we developed our fast track claims model, what prompted the change and what we set out to achieve. And then we're going to walk you through what that model looks like in practice. And after that, we'll focus on one of the key elements of the model, desktop claims. You'll see a demo of how desktop claims are handled, followed by real life case studies to bring the proposition to life, essentially. And we'll also explain how claims are routed into Fast Track and explore the specific benefits of the desktop approach. And as I've mentioned, we'll close with a Q&A session, so please feel free to ask any questions in the chat or in the Q&A function. So let's make a start then. I'll pass over to Paul.
Okay, so why Fast Track? If I could take you back to the late 1990s when I first entered the insurance world as a claims assistant, my unit manager took me to one side to tell me about the 3 main things that drive a successful claims department. And these were keeping the customer happy, reducing overspend on claims, and reducing cycle times. And she told me that if I always kept these at the forefront of my mind as a claims handler, then I wouldn't go far wrong. So that's what I did. And as I moved into team leading, I always kept these close to my heart. And as a result, the teams I've managed have always performed well. Since the late 1990s, the one big change that we've seen is the reliance on email to progress claims. Again, thinking back to when I started off, we had paper files, and the only way to chase up matters was to use the telephone. And don't get me wrong, email's a wonderful thing, but over the years we've become a little too over-reliant on it. And as a result, cycle times and the speed that we settle and progress claims within the insurance industry has been affected negatively. So here at AXA in the Commercial Property Department, we looked at all the claims that were received in 2024, and a good 60% of our claims settled under £5,000. Of these claims under £5,000, around 80% took over 2 months to settle, and it simply wasn't good enough. So toward the end of last year, we decided to try a new proof of concept, adopting some old school tactics to see if we could turn back the years to achieve a much better outcome for both our policyholders and our own internal efficiencies. So we decided to target our claims under £5,000 in order to drive as many of these claims through to settlement in the quickest and most efficient manner, primarily because this was the vast majority of our work that fell below that value, and in theory the lower value should in most instances also mean less complexity. What we do for all these claims, we consider immediate payments for the claims valued less than £500, consider paying from one estimate per case up to £5,000, and where this wasn't possible, or if it was a better outcome and experience for the policyholder, we would also consider the use of our desktop scoping team, which Danny will go into more detail later regarding. It must be added though, that despite us looking to place the policyholder in the pre position as quickly as possible, we wouldn't compromise on the required validation checks relating to things such as policy and fraud prevention, to name but a few. So the claims that we consider for fast track currently are accidental damage, escape of water, impact, malicious damage, storm and theft. We pick these perils and these claims as, just like the claims valued under £5,000, these perils make up the vast majority of the claims in commercial property here at AXA. So how do we approach this? We ring-fenced in January a small team of 7 handlers and gave them some very defined working orders and directions. The initial task each day for the handlers is to triage all the new claims that come into the department the previous day, and any claims that had adequate information provided by our brokers or policyholders and met the value and peril criteria were transferred into the team. The next task for the handlers was to action all the new claims, and the handlers are under strict instruction to use the telephone at every opportunity. Emails must only be sent if the handler was unable to make contact by telephone. And the opening line that the handlers give the policyholder or the broker is that we'd like to settle your claim as quickly as possible, and this is the information we need to be able to do that. If the handlers can get the information over the phone there and then that's the preferred option, and we'll claim there and then. If not, then the handler will agree to call back the person they're speaking to the next day to get the information that's needed, and again agree to chase this by telephone the very next day. And that's another key point to how the team approach the claims. In the vast majority of instances, diaries are only set for the next day. Obviously, if someone is going to be away on holiday, for example, then we'd create an appropriate diary accordingly for that. Once they're clear on the new claims for the day, the handlers then move on to the diaries for from the previous day that they've set. This was another key change from our previous ways of working. Previously, correspondence that had come in, whether that be emails or post, would have priority. And only then, when the handlers were clear on these incoming work items, would handlers then move on to diary. This, we felt, created a culture where handlers were encouraged and targeted to clear work items rather than to proactively drive the claim through to settlement. Again, it must be highlighted that handlers must also always use the telephone for the diary work over email. The next part of the day, in terms of the priority of working order for the guys, is only when clear on the diaries for the day would handlers then move on to their incoming work items. But interestingly, because of the proactive nature of the diary work and the use of the telephone, there's very, very few emails that come into the team or telephone calls. Final key point to how the team work is that unless a handler is absent, there's 100% case ownership on the team, which results in an excellent customer experience. So, what are the results? So we've reduced our overall cycle times down to just 13 days for the claims that have been through fast track this year. Not only that, but over 50% of the claims that we've handled settle in less than 48 hours. Prior to the fast track team, each claim experienced 11 separate handler touches during the claims journey, and we reduced that to just 4 for the claims that have flowed through fast track so far this year. And a key point as well is that we've not received a single complaint on any of the claims that we've handled on fast track, not a single one. In fact, the only negative feedback we have had is that sometimes we drive claims a little bit too proactively. I'll now pass you over to Danny, who will give a little bit more insight into our desktop scoping team and the tool that they use, which is one of our options for settlement within Fast Track.
Perfect. So the desktop team, to kind of cut it simply, we're a very small team within the commercial property space. Our aim is to validate low value building claims. Now, we do it in the same way of our external surveyors, apart from we don't do it by go to site. Instead, we look to complete a live video call with somebody who can attend the property to show us the damage. Now, this could be anyone who's authorised to attend, so a client, a tenant, managed agent or contractor. This video call is just purely to show us the damage. Following on from that, we will discuss the next steps regarding settlement and financial offers to the correct person following on that call being complete. We've been up and running in commercial property for 4 years now, previously having success in retail claims. It is now kind of grown drastically in that area, and that's something we hope to do within commercial property. We have also increased our delegated authority this year, which was previously £5,000, and now is up to £10,000 that we would look to handle claims. This shows great commitment from AXA to the growth of this team and the process that we've got. On desktop, we mainly handle escape of water claims. 81% of the claims that we handle are escape of water. However, we also look to validate accidental damage, malicious damage, impact claims to your boundary walls and your fences, and small fire claims. Things that particularly wouldn't be suitable for us on desktop are your storm claims, subsidence, flood, and then your impact to your main property, just where structural concerns may be, because them ones probably are more suited for someone to attend the property. So as mentioned above, we would look to complete a live video call, which the next video will give you a very quick overview of how this looks. So to complete the video call, Luke, what we're looking for is the customer to download an app. The app's free of charge, both on the Google Play and Apple App Store. And the client would just need to allow access to the camera, microphone, location services, and then we'd give them a code whilst we're on the phone so they can connect to show us the damage. Once that is then connected, the video, we have access to record the video. So as you can see, it's just turned red. That shows that we would be recording it, and that's stored on our claim system. We would also take some photos, as you've seen, and we're able to review them whilst the video is up and running. So what we can do is just make sure we're happy with them. And what that also means is that we can get the right information the first time without the need to go for another video call or requesting further images to be sent in. If we do have signal issues, as on this occasion, we have the ability to refresh the stream on our side, so it should reconnect the video call. So if there's no issues, and we can keep going. And the final feature you should be able to see at the moment, it's not showing too great because of the lighting, but you'll notice in the bottom right, the torch button turned yellow. We've just got full access to be able to record the video, to use the torch to see under kind of baths, quick kitchen cupboards and everything like that. And then finally, when I mentioned the location services, as you can see on the video, it does pinpoint the location very accurately. So this video was completed at our AXA office in Morecambe, and that just means that we can confirm the risk address is correct. Once the video call has been complete, what we'd be looking to do is build a scope of works to make the offer to the client for a cash settlement. We'd use the same scoping system that all of our external surveyors use. Gives us a consistent and fair approach across AXA, and the rates of the system are reviewed every quarter, so we can absolutely be sure that our offers are fair and in line with the current market value. These rates are calculated by postcode. We are very aware that down south and in other areas of the country are notoriously more expensive than up north. The rates of the property where the risk has occurred will be where the rates are calculated for. If for any reason the client's unable to complete a video call, we are able to send them a link via email or text message, and this would enable them to upload images and videos that way. We often receive videos by email which are blocked, and this doesn't happen over this link because it's directly to ourselves. Now, our aim is to basically get these claims validated quickly and at the right price first time. So moving on to the case study, this was a prime example of a desktop case that has been through our team. A few images on the right, just kind of existing claims that we have dealt with in the past to kind of show you a representation of that. But this case study, what it was, logged on day one for an escape of water claim. The handler then triaged it through to desktop. We aimed to pick up the claim within 48 hours. However, on this one, we picked it up the following morning where the client was contacted and a video call was booked in. It was booked for 2 days later because that was their preferred date and time. And then the client was called at the agreed time of 10 a.m. Video call took about 15 minutes, and the handler then went away, reviewed the information, built the scope of works. As you can see on this example, they then called them back just under an hour and a half after the time of the call, explained the offer to the customer, that was accepted, we could issue payment, and the customer got the funds the same day. So just to kind of summarise some key benefits of the desktop process, we're booking our appointments at very specific times. So one benefit to us is if we tell you we're going to call you at a time, we will call you at that time. There's no travel for us, so there's no reason for us to be late for them appointments, which sometimes you can get in the external surveyor field. We have full case ownership, so it really does help improve our relationships with the clients and yourselves. We have been able to build some good, really good broker relationships who understand our process. We do have as well really quick cycle times. So when we're comparing ourselves to the external surveyors, the cycle times on desktop are drastically quicker. And a final one, which I always kind of point out, we do work direct for AXA. There's no middleman with any third-party suppliers. If there are any issues, we are AXA as well, so we will sort them out head on. So that's it for me on the desktop thing, and I will pass you back to Paul.
Okay, thank you. So the next slide provides a little bit of a snapshot of some of the feedback that we've had so far this year. All positive. There is kind of one in the middle at the bottom which makes reference to all the chasing that we do, but we do see that as a bit of positive feedback because it shows that we're doing our job. And it is something to note that it is a new concept for us, using old school approaches, and it is quite a new experience for some of our brokers for us to be chasing them. So we have been on a bit of a journey with some of our brokers to show the benefits of all this proactive chasing that we're doing, but for sure it's delivering on what we want it to deliver. So next slide.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Just before we move on, I just wanted to know you take a minute just to look at what's being said. Obviously, you've highlighted some bits there, and while we do that, we've made our second poll live in the chat. So it's just asking you if you have had experience of our fast track process before. How would you describe your experience? So just 1 or 2 words would be absolutely fine. So if you could take the time just to respond to that if you have had experience with our fast track team. So yeah, just looking at some of this feedback then, it really helps us understand how the experience is landing. And I think this isn't just about good service, it's all about what we're achieving together, because this is very much a joint endeavour, I suppose. We need to work together to try and get as many claims through the fast track process as possible. But I think it's really encouraging that we've had customers call the claim service incredible, saying that their claims were handled swiftly and fairly, even covering things that they didn't expect. So that was a really great positive to that feedback there on the top left. And you, our broker and delegated authority partners, have described it as amazing, exceeding expectations and making a real difference for your customers. So I think the takeaway is that we know fast track works and it's delivering the kind of outcomes that make our mutual customers happy, and hopefully that builds some trust in the process as well. And I think it's fair to say that there's still more opportunity. The more claims that we can route through fast track, the more of this kind of experience we can deliver. And that's absolutely something that we can work on together. So I can see, thanks very much for responding to the poll that's live. It looks like we've had some good experience as well, which is fantastic. So that's good to hear. But yeah, I'll pop over to the next slide then, Paul.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So what next for fast track? So now that we've proved that the concept works, we want and need to mirror this way, working across all our teams within commercial property at AXA. It's fine doing this with a relatively small team, but what about all the rest of the claims that we handle here in commercial property at AXA? So we'll shortly be starting next week, actually, an initiative to move more claims across into the team that do not get picked up by the initial triage process currently. And we'll do this in stages over the coming months, with the intention that in time, each and every claim within the department gets the same proactive approach and benefit as we see within the fast track team. We'll also be issuing a helpful tool, a pro forma tool to our brokers to help them provide us the information we need at day one to help us start the claim off in the best manner and hopefully help us put the policyholders back in the pre-incident position as quickly as possible. We're also aiming to shortly increase our upper value limit for Fast Track from £5,000 to £10,000, which again should help us capture more claims. And that is essentially Fast Track. So we proved the old school approach of proactive use of the telephone really still does work. But a massive part of how successful this approach can be is very much down to the quality of the instructions we get at day one from our policyholders and brokers. So any assistance that you guys can give us on this front is absolutely crucial to ensuring that we can indeed put our policyholders back in that pre-incident position as quickly as possible. So without further ado, I guess there's no better time than to open the session up to any questions. So Catherine, do we have any?
We certainly have. We've got a few in the chat, but before we get to those, as I mentioned at the start of the webinar, we've had a few great questions submitted in advance. So I'll cover those off first, all touching on how brokers can better support fast track claims. So we've grouped them here as they're all along a similar theme, but we want to acknowledge each of you directly. So thank you, Lucy from Howden. You asked how brokers can help triage claims and whether there are situations where it's helpful for AXA to speak directly with the client to enable day one settlement. Thank you to Mark from Residence Line. You raised a really important point that policyholders often don't know what information is needed at FNOL. And you asked how AXA helps ensure more claims meet fast track criteria. And David Gillian from Marsh, hi David, you asked what brokers can do better to help settle more low value property claims promptly and what high performing brokers are doing differently. So all three questions point to the same theme. How can we essentially work together to improve the quality of information at FNOL and to enable more claims to benefit from fast track? So I'll just pass back to Paul on that. Mark, I can see you've got your hand up, so I'll come to you after that, if that's okay. But yeah, Paul, if you wouldn't mind just chipping in there.
Yeah, so it's a really good question. So turning the needle on how the handlers approach their management of these claims was probably the easy bit. We knew it'd work. What we experienced and came to understand very early on after launching the team was the biggest factor in how successful we can be in terms of getting claims through and managing them well was the quality of the new claim instruction that came through at day one. And across the board with all different brokers, it varied immensely. But one consistent theme that has come out when I've been speaking to brokers at various stages over the past 9 months is it's not a case of us demanding and expecting perfect new claims day one, and it's become increasingly evident that you guys don't always get the best reports from your policyholders either, and that's been the real challenge. So we've worked on producing a document that I think Catherine can share in the coming weeks, which details exactly what information would be ideal on every claim, but also breaking it down by the different perils, as in what would be really good for the different sort of claims that your policyholders are presenting to you. And I think one important point that I would like to underline is what we don't want is claims being delayed, being sent to us because you don't have A, B, C, D, and E bits of information. But if you do have it, then please provide it. It's a very complex area of claims is commercial property with a lot of considerations. So to expect our brokers and policyholders to know exactly what to send to us is a really big ask. So hopefully this document will help. Hopefully the pro forma tool that we'll be sending out will also help guide the reports for new claims, whether that be for you or for our policyholders. But I think in terms of how our brokers can help us, it's just by getting as much information to us that's relevant to that claim as early as possible. But saying that, with the new initiatives that we've got to pull more claims into fast track, the onus is on us at our end to really kind of be reaching out very, very quickly and constantly to the brokers and policyholders to say, this is the information we need, and if you can get it to us, then your claim will get settled very, very quickly. In terms of our interactions with the policyholders direct, we're more than happy to do that. If certain brokers are happy for us to reach out direct to our customers, then we're more than happy to do that direct. Appreciate that preference can vary from broker to broker, but what we have found over the course of the past 9 months is that some of our brokers that perhaps, and rightly so, were a little protective about us contacting policyholders direct. They've seen the benefit to us being able to do that, to take the claim off their desk, while still keeping the broker informed of what was going on, but to be able to get information to really put the customer back in the position they were before the incident. So I hope that addresses and kind of answers the questions that you mentioned there, Catherine.
That's great. Thanks for that detailed response, Paul. Mark, if you had any further questions and you can't come off chat or unmute yourself because the meeting, all good, thanks, brilliant. Yeah, if you've got any further questions, pop them in the chat, because I think due to the settings, you might not be able to unmute or come on camera. So anything further, please do let us know. Okay, so let's work through the rest of these in order then. So Chris Collins, so thank you very much for your question. Apologies if I missed a mention of this, but what happens if a policyholder wants AXA to appoint a contractor rather than receiving a cash settlement? Now, Paul or Dan, I can pass over to you, but am I right in thinking that if that's the policyholder's preference, you know, we absolutely don't force a cash settlement, and we can take things out of the fast track process? You know, it's not, once it's in there, and that doesn't necessarily mean that we wouldn't, you know, proactively drive that claim forward, but we do certainly take into consideration policyholder preference.
100%. So if you remember, I started the presentation by harping back to my younger years in the late 90s, and my claims manager telling me about these 3 focus areas of keeping the customer happy, keeping our overspend down, and reducing the cycle times. And that truly is, hand on heart, what we're trying to achieve here is the best outcomes for the customer. So if the customer does prefer a different route of settlement, then of course we'll consider it. The whole principle of fast track isn't about throwing money at people to settle the claims quickly at all. We still validate the claim, we go through all the usual checks, and yeah, for sure, whichever way that works best for the customer, then we'll always consider it and do what we can to give the customer what they need and deserve.
Brilliant, great. Anything further, Chris, please do let us know. So Carl Livermore, thanks very much for your question. So if a policyholder accepts the cash settlement but subsequently says that there is additional damage or costs, how do we then proceed? Is that one best sat with you, Dan?
Yeah, sure. So from a desktop approach, we always make them aware of this when we settle claims. We settle based on what we can see at the time, the same way a surveyor can only settle for what they see when they attend the property. Given, as I mentioned, 81% of our claims are escapable water, there's always a high risk that further damage would be found. If that is the case, what we advise the customer to do, once they find the further damage, grab some photos, get back in contact with us, date it the same way we did initially, and raise any further payments where required. It is just a case of day one, we can only go by what we can see. So as soon as the customer becomes aware of it, let us know. And of course, if the file's settled because we've issued a payment, we'll open it, no problem at all. We're not here to make a payment and close the claim down for good. If there's further damage, come back to us, we'll validate, of course.
Oh, that's great. And I think that should give us some real confidence, actually, because we know sometimes that further damage is discovered later down the line. So that's really great to hear that we reopen those claims if we need to, and we'll consider that additional damage. It's not a sort of one and done, and you can't contact us again even if you discover anything further. That's great. Thank you for that. Hopefully that answers your question, Carl. So Leon England, thanks very much for your question. So does this apply to all types of property? Are there any exceptions in terms of property types, so listed buildings, etc.?
So the fast track criteria is currently set up for the claims under £5,000, and we're going to knock that up to £10,000. If it's a listed property, then it probably will generally be a little bit more expensive and fall like the current process. But there's nothing really that, so there will be such claims that we think are suitable for fast track that as we work through them, it seems that they don't fit the current criteria. Those claims don't fall into a black hole, so they're still retained in the team, and they may get passed on to a more technical handler or may consider a different route. But I guess the key takeaway with Fast Track isn't necessarily about the criteria of the claims that meet it, it's how we approach those claims. So if a claim comes through, then yeah, even if it's a listed building, it would stay with the team and still be dealt in the same proactive manner. So yeah, currently there are no exceptions to cases falling out or anything like that, but as I mentioned before, we want to get to a point and need to get to a point where every single claim within the claims department, whatever peril, whatever value, gets handled in the same old school proactive approach that means that the customer will get the quickest possible settlement.
Just if I can add to that one on a desktop basis as well, listed buildings are still suitable under the desktop process because it is value driven. So if it falls under that £10,000 delegated authority, it is still something we can validate. Naturally, they do come with more kind of technical quirks to them. But as long as we can deal with it, then we absolutely would. It's a bit more of a case by case on a listed property, just because it can vary so drastically. But just having one doesn't put it out of scope for us as well. It's definitely something we can validate if we've got the knowledge to.
Great stuff. Thanks both. Hopefully that answers your question. So we've got another question from Jayshree. Thank you very much for that. So when reporting the claim to AXA, do brokers suggest that we need this to go via Fast Track, or will this be decided by the handler to whom we have reported?
So, absolutely. So the current setup is that we triage all the new claims that come in and try and find the ones that have the adequate information to be able to put it through Fast Track and get it settled quickly. So that should capture most of them. But absolutely, if you've got a claim and you think that there's adequate information on there for it to get settled very, very quickly, there's absolutely no harm in you marking the instructions, say this could be one for Fast Track, or if you're speaking to us on the phone, say this will be a good one for Fast Track, so that we can kind of not have to rely on it getting scooped up in the triage process, but it can be routed straight through. So absolutely, yes, you can, and absolutely, it would also help us as well. So yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I think we'd definitely encourage that. If you think that we've got a claim suitable for Fast Track, please do, highlight in the email or what have you, or over the telephone, that you think it's suitable for one. And I think as Paul's already alluded to, we should be in a position shortly to share some documentation and a pro forma with yourselves to help you identify those as well, and also to help educate your customers around what is needed for Fast Track or any property claim for that matter, because we do appreciate it. It's really difficult. Ideally, we don't want claims. Customers might only experience one claim in 10 years, so they're not going to know at the forefront of their mind what they need to provide. They've got other things, important things to think about. Making an insurance claim is probably the last thing on their mind until obviously they need to. So hopefully those materials will be available, like I said, in the immediate future. So we'll absolutely make sure that those who have attended the call, we share those documents with you, but equally they will be put out through a multitude of channels as well. So keep your eyes peeled and we'll share that. Another good question, actually, Stuart Adamson, thank you very, very much. What is the best email to ensure it goes to Fast Track the quickest?
So so we have a phone number that we can share after this webinar. So I'll certainly get that out, and feel free to ring reports straight through into that team. Again, that would help us make sure that we're getting all the claims that should fit the criteria. In terms of the email address, it's the same email addresses that you use for your general claims, and we will pick it up through the current triage, so we'll capture the claims as they come through. As I say, that's the first job that all the handlers do each day, is sift through all the claims that have come in the previous day and find those. So just use the same email addresses that you usually use, and as we said on the last question, if you want to kind of mark it up as a potential Fast Track case, then feel free to do so.
And just to sign, I'll signpost you to our LinkedIn page and our AXA Connect site after the, at the end of this webinar. But we have got a one and done and a desktop one pager that we can share with you, which has got our contact numbers on as well, so you've got those. But we'll absolutely get you out the contact information. That's not a problem. Carol's very kindly pointed me to the Q&A, to the chat. We've got the Q&A. We've got some questions in there as well. So Janine, thank you for your question. We've got, how claims as a percentage go through fast track, as we find that they're few and far between?
20%. So 20% of our claims this year have gone through fast track. And again, the only thing that stops it going into fast track is it being above £5,000, which will go up to £10,000. But more than anything, as I said previously, it's the quality of the new claim instruction that we receive. So if we got all the information at day one to be able to see that it's one that fits the fast track criteria, it'll go through. We're very, very keen to increase the amount going through fast track, because apart from it being a very good experience for the customer, putting them in the pre-incident position as quickly as possible, it's very efficient for us as a business, because we're using the phone so much, and because we're only touching each claim 4 times as opposed to 11 times on the claims last year. What that means, and this was why my unit manager back in the 90s told me that this was a key point for a claims department. It means that if you can settle claims quicker, handlers can deal with more claims. So what we're finding is that, as well as a really good experience for the customer, we're able to handle more claims per handler, which is really, really good. So yeah, we want as many claims as we can to go through this process, not just for the customer's benefit, but for ours as well. So yeah, Janine, if you want to reach out and kind of link in with me, I'm happy to talk through and have a look at your claims and see what it is might be that's causing not as many of those to go through as we'd like. Because definitely, if there's any way that we can get more claims through this process, then it's definitely going to be better for our customers.
Thanks, Paul. And we've got another question from Janine about BVS and at which point we bring BVS into the claim. As this is fast track, we wouldn't necessarily bring BVS into the fast track process. So I think it's probably better if we take that one off. Absolutely, we'll come back to you on that, Janine. And as Paul's offered, he's more than happy to have a chat with you around your fast track claims. But equally, we can absolutely have a chat with you around BVS as well, as I think you've made a point about some estimates and invoices, but then the calculations aren't quite communicated as clearly as they could be. So thank you for that feedback. We can absolutely take that offline, and that's important feedback. So thank you. But we'll pick it up with you separately to this webinar session. Is it Sean Patterson? Sorry, I can't see your first name, just showing up as S, so apologies if it's not. Could you include me, please, as it's a claims webinar and I am the claims department? Yes, of course we can. The invite's very much open to everybody. We can make sure that you're on our claims distribution list. So that's absolutely not a problem moving forward. Leave that with us and you'll be invited to any future webinars. I think we've got a few more questions in the chat, so thank you all for your engagement. It is really appreciated. So is fast track limited to certain access schemes, or would it apply to any commercial / SME property claims that are applicable?
Yeah, we don't discriminate at all. So so long as our customers and brokers don't have any issues with the process, then everything's in scope, really. Again, although fast track is a team currently, it's a principle, and we want to roll this out across the department on all our claims. So absolutely not. We want to give all of our customers the same benefit that's being achieved through this process.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Andrew, for your question there. And I think we've got one from Sandra as well. So, oh yeah, I think it's just about the recording. So yeah, absolutely. We have recorded the session today, and as soon as it's been through the top and entailing process to make it look a bit fancy, we'll get that out to you, no problem. We do have a YouTube channel where all of our previous webinars will be stored. So feel free to have a look through those as well. But we will absolutely be sharing that recording with you, and then you can feel free to share that far and wide as well with your colleagues or anybody else that you feel could benefit from that. So yep, Sandra, absolutely, we'll follow up with you on that. And then Andrew, thank you again. Yep, it's great to hear. It'll save us all time. Absolutely. I think we've all agreed, this is a very much a collective effort. We are very much, wanting to get as many claims through this process as possible. The lower value claims should be settled as quickly as possible, and that's what we're all trying to achieve. So it sounds like we're all on board, and we can all work together to try and do that for our mutual customers. So I think that probably brings us, unless I'm mistaken, I don't think we've got any more questions that have popped up, but that's not to say, oh, hang on, have we got, I've got one from David. Hi, David. Can you provide any guidance as to when one quote is going to be sufficient for our client to obtain, and when they will potentially need to get more than one quote? And is one estimate/quote sufficient for all claims under 10 grand?
Do you want to have a go at this, Danny, from a desktop perspective?
Yeah, so from a desktop perspective, it is different to the fast track approach on this. For us, it is simply down to cost. So when we're validating the claims and we produce a scope of works, of course, if they've got one quote that's in line with our scope of works or there or thereabouts, we're not going to force them to get two. It's a waste of everyone's time. If we're happy with that first quotation, we would settle based on it. Of course, if for any reason there's any variation in price, we're quite far apart on what they're valuing the works to be and what we are, then of course we'd need a second quote, kind of broken down materials and things like that. As a rule of thumb, we always advise them to get two, just to kind of get that ball rolling. However, if they get one, send it through to us, because it may well be that is enough for us. Like I said, I know the fast track one and done process might be slightly different to that, but from a desktop perspective, that's how we would view it.
Yeah, and from a fast track perspective, the handler would use their knowledge and skills off one estimate, and if they were comfortable that it was a reasonable quote, they'd be happy to pay it off one estimate. But it is hard to kind of apply the one estimate approach with a wide brush approach across all claims, because every claim is different. And whilst we'd love to say that we'll just pay every claim under £10,000 off one estimate, no questions asked, there is a risk with that in terms of overspend and kind of people taking advantage of it, for want of a better word. So it is difficult to apply a one estimate approach across all claims, but if it is a reasonable quote and we're comfortable with it, then yeah, we will consider it for sure.
Great, thanks, Paul. We've had one more question pop up. So Anna, thank you very much. Is it only the fast track team that triage and log claims as the first action of the day, or has this been rolled out across the full business?
So a good question. It is only the fast track team. So in addition to driving the proactive use of the telephones and prioritising diary over incoming work, having this strict, if that's the right word, order of working each day has worked really well, because some handlers are better at others at organising the day, and it creates the anxiety about what to hit first and what to hit next, and it helps them be more productive in general if they know that they do this before they go on to that, and so on and so on. So no, it hasn't, but in my opinion, I think having a dedicated order of working across every team within the claims department will be beneficial and have the same effects. So yes, to your question, it is only the fast track team, but the next few weeks and months of us bringing more claims into the team and handlers into the team, they will be adopting this approach. So over time, in stages, hopefully we'll get to a point where everybody does the same approach as fast track across the department and gets the same results.
Fab. Thanks, Paul. Hopefully that answers your question, Anna. So I think that might well be it. So thank you all again for your engagement. That's absolutely brilliant. We've had a good number of questions in there, and hopefully they've been answered to your satisfaction. So thanks to Paul and Dan for that as well. As I mentioned, before we wrap up, we just really love to hear from yourselves in terms of what other topics you'd like us to cover off in future webinars. So I'm going to just launch the final poll in a second, if you just bear with me. There we go. Just going to launch that now. So that's your opportunity to feedback to us. Obviously, we've covered fast track today, but we're very much open to suggestions in terms of what you'd like to hear from us about in the future. So Your input just really helps us shape these sessions, and it just makes sure that they're as relevant and valuable to you as you and your team as possible, I suppose. But what I would just like to say is, if you haven't already, if you could just make sure that you're following AXA Broker UK LinkedIn, because it's the best way to stay up to date with our latest fast track proposition materials and other broker and delegated authority partner focused updates. So we're regularly putting material onto LinkedIn. So please do engage with us that way, and that would be fantastic. We've already got lots of material on AXA Connect. So everything that I've mentioned today, our one and done document, our desktop assessment document, that's all on the AXA Connect site under the Make a Commercial Property Claim section. So please do log onto there and download those and share them with your customers and use them to help inform them in terms of the fast track options available to them. And as I mentioned, we should shortly be able to share more material with you in terms of what we need, depending on the peril and the pro forma as well. So as soon as those are ready, we will definitely pass those out to you. And then I think finally, I'd just like to say that we would really value your feedback. So you'll receive a very short email survey after this webinar ends. So it only takes, I think it's literally a minute. I don't even think it takes 2 minutes to complete. So we'd really value you taking the time to complete that and sharing your feedback about today's session. And I think that just leaves it to say, well, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you for engaging with us. And we really look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Thanks a lot.